that would mean so much to me. We're going to start over here. Cathy Engelbert has failed as WNBA Commissioner. Dan Dakich says the WNBA needs stronger leadership than Cathy Engelbert. They need a male leader. They need a male leader. Let's just call a spade over here.
That is the core of the storm right now. The WNBA is at a pivotal crossroads, a moment in history that arguably should be its greatest, yet it is being defined by a leadership vacuum that has everyone from sports analysts to casual observers sounding the alarm. It is not just about the league's growing pains. It is about a commissioner who seems increasingly disconnected from the product, the fans, and the very business realities that dictate whether a league thrives or dies.
Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Well, that works sometimes. It doesn't work when you're the commissioner of a league that has struggled for 30 years, 28 years, until Caitlin Clark came in year 28, 29, and now 30. This league has been absolute an afterthought.
The argument being made is simple yet brutal: lead, follow, or get out of the way. For nearly 3 decades, this league struggled for relevance. Then came the Caitlin Clark era. This was supposed to be the launchpad, the moment everything changed. But instead of seizing that momentum, we are seeing a series of public relations disasters, officiating controversies, and an internal culture that feels more like an afterthought than a professional sports organization. The frustration isn't just that things are going wrong. It is the perceived refusal of those at the very top to take the wheel and actually steer the ship.
They failed to do so. And Cathy Engelbert, another thing, speaking about her leadership, she's trying to pass this off on the PR. She's trying to blame the PR. Cathy, that even reeks of poor leadership worse. Instead of taking accountability yourself, you're passing the buck to PR, who in theory should be working for you, should be taking orders from you, but instead you're placing the blame on them for why you refuse to take an interview with Dan Patrick.
Passing the buck to the PR department when the heat gets turned up is a classic hallmark of a leadership failure. When a commissioner refuses to face the tough questions, specifically by dodging interviews or blaming communications staff for scheduling conflicts, it signals a lack of confidence. If you are not willing to stand in front of a microphone and address the league's issues, you lose the narrative. And when you lose the narrative, the perception becomes reality. And right now, that reality looks like a commissioner who is fundamentally unserious about the business of professional basketball.
Right. You're the commissioner of the league. Yes, there are times when you listen to PR, but I always go to the actual. I've been in these situations. I've had PR people actually flown in a couple of different times when I've made certain decisions when I was coaching. And I always sat there and I listened.
You have to wonder what the strategy is behind this silence. In any high-stakes league, the NBA, the NFL, the Premier League, the commissioner acts as the ultimate shield and the ultimate salesperson. They don't just manage, they set the tone. When a leader goes into hiding or limits themselves to safe, scripted conversations, they are essentially telling the public that they are either unprepared or unwilling to handle the reality of the environment they are responsible for. It leaves a power vacuum that inevitably gets filled by speculation, drama, and the very controversy they are trying to avoid.
About what's going on in your league, unless, my opinion, you're so afraid of the angry African-American lesbians getting mad at you and canceling you as the commissioner. Again,
that's a good point right there. She could be afraid of the players in the league canceling her, a la Nafisa Collier, a la Onyeka Ogwumike, a la the WNBA.
That is the elephant in the room that people are scared to address. Are these decisions being driven by a fear of alienating specific player groups, or is there a genuine sense of being overmatched by the rapid evolution of the league's culture? If the commissioner is perceived to be paralyzed by the fear of being canceled by their own players or activists within the league, then the league has lost its autonomy. You cannot have a professional sports entity where the inmates are effectively running the asylum, yet that is the perception that is taking root, and it is devastating the league's professional credibility.
All of that could be very well true. I'm also going to throw this in there. She could be worried that maybe Congress isn't bluffing. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Maybe she's worried. But she's also incompetent and scared that the players are going to turn on her and just start airing every little thing out.
Beyond the internal politics, there is the external pressure. When you have congressional scrutiny, legal threats, and a fan base that is increasingly demanding accountability, you don't just stay the course, you pivot. But to pivot, you have to admit that the current trajectory is flawed. Cathy Engelbert's inability to acknowledge the fractures in her own organization makes the situation appear terminal for her leadership. When you are afraid of the truth or afraid of airing it, you are no longer leading. You are just surviving, and survival is not a growth strategy for a league that needs to be exploding in value, not stagnating in drama.
It's a good point. You think Roger Goodell gives a damn? Roger Goodell doesn't care. Roger Goodell understands, I work for the owners. If the players aren't happy, oh well, I work for the owners. That's how David Stern was. I work for the owners. If the players aren't happy, oh well, I work for the owners.
Compare this to the standards set by the titans of the industry. David Stern and Roger Goodell understand the foundational truth of sports business. You work for the owners. The owners demand profit, stability, and growth. If the players are unhappy, that is a management issue, not a reason to abandon your fiduciary responsibility to the league's sustainability. The perception that Engelbert is prioritizing placating players, or managing internal optics over building a business model that satisfies the stakeholders, is the primary reason why so many observers feel she is fundamentally miscast for the job.
Perception is reality, and the perception that this is giving off is that, Cathy, you know you work for the owners, right? You know you don't work for the players. You know you don't have to answer to the players. She might not know that.
She's a follower. She's reactive instead of being proactive. Whether she goes...
This brings us to the core issue of agency. Perception is reality. If the players feel like they hold the power to dictate the league's direction, or if they feel they can disregard the commissioner's authority, then the entire hierarchy has collapsed. That isn't a healthy sports ecosystem. It is a reactive, unstable environment where every controversy is exacerbated by the fact that no one is certain who is actually in charge. A professional league requires a clear, authoritative hand at the top. And right now, the WNBA is functioning like a ship without a captain during a hurricane.
On Dan Dakich or Dan Patrick or Sports Center
or Ben Daniel,
whatever.
She can come here.
Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But the fact that you have all of this going on, all of this negativity, and it's turning the WNBA at the best moment in the history of that league, in the sorry-ass history of that league, it's the best moments they have these last couple of years, and it's all because of Caitlin Clark. And you won't show up and try to...
We have to ask ourselves, how long can this continue? We are sitting on the most potentially lucrative period in the history of women's professional basketball. The talent is there, the interest is there, and the market is ready. The only thing missing is the kind of decisive business-first leadership that turns a cultural moment into a long-term corporate juggernaut. If the leadership keeps hiding behind PR spin, the opportunity will pass them by. They might be able to ignore the critics for a few more months, but they cannot ignore the bottom line. So what is the path forward? Is this league salvageable under the current regime, or has the damage to the commissioner's reputation already made it impossible for her to secure the future of the WNBA? Let me know your take in the comments. Are you on the side of the players, or do you think the league needs a complete overhaul at the top to survive? Hit that subscribe button and stick around, because this story is far from over.